amazes me on what I have to go through to get their information to them, the school. And I deny almost all their requests. I do that also, both of them are in Scouts. For them to go on a week camping trip, what they wanted me to provide them was, not, excuse my French, none of their business. My kids are not taking anything more than what they got before I got them. It's imperative that we all become educated as grandparents, parents, whoever you're involved with children, realize that what we are doing, our country is doing, our doctors, which know very little, about what's going on. And sometimes you feel you're alone. Because you're on a phone with someone, you're in person with them, and they're throwing things at you. No, that's not going to work. No, that's not going to work. No, that's not. Well, we're telling you that you can't. Yes, it will work. You're going to deny my children to go to school? So it gets into a very strong conversation. You would think you would just get your kids in school and they'd be happy to have them in school and learning. But we're not doing that. We're going to put some roadblocks up. We're going to try to put some blocks in, and we're going to try to do whatever we can to get them some shots. It's disgusting. Same thing when you go to a doctor. You're a certain age, you need shingles, etc. No, I don't need that. Yeah. So it affects us wholeheartedly on a local level. If you only have grandkids, you've got to keep them aware of what's going on. I know some people have a tough time talking to their kids about what the grandkids should be doing and what shouldn't be doing, but you've got to, this is one of those issues you've got to put your foot down and say, you've got to listen to me. You've got to listen to a Mary. You've got to listen to someone with sense or sensibility and common sense and experience more than some of the doctors. She'll talk more about that. Well, anyway, personal experiences are always wonderful. You can talk about them, but I want Mary to do her job. She's done a fabulous job, and I appreciate everyone coming, and I think you'll extremely enjoy what she has to say, for sure. Mary, would you come out? A woman of 4 years experience. I think she's got more experience than most doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah. What we're going to do is we're handing out a quick little survey. Your thoughts after we're finished. We'll hand them back to Mary.
Well, these stages were ready. Is it easier to pay? Yeah. Is that still echoing? This is okay, so.
Testing? That works. Okay. Just so you know, in South Carolina, as you're looking at my computer, we do have a right to waive vaccinations for school here. It's called a religious and also a medical exemption. They don't tell you that at the schools because they get money based on their numbers of how many children are vaccinated. And this goes all the way back to the 50s. So if you have children or grandkids that are in the system, just let their parents know you can get a religious exemption. I will be talking about the use of aborted needle cell lines to develop vaccines today. I'm going to touch on it briefly, but there is a religious exemption for anybody who believes abortion is wrong, let alone putting them in vaccinations, which has never been tested for safety, and I believe is causing gender confusion in our children. So you do have to go to the health department, you sit down with them, you request a religious exemption. Usually you have to make an appointment, and they try to convince you to get them, but you just stand firm and you just say, no, I have a religious objection. You do not have to belong to a church. You do not have to have a pastor's letter. Under the Constitution, we have the right to say no to anything that is offensive to our religious beliefs. So it's originally was gonna be a Maha update. My friends are calling me Maha Mary now because I've been involved in holistic health for over 40-something years. Okay, it does go in some close. And so, is that one? We used it last time to get my computer up there on that screen. Otherwise, it's gonna be really boring to just listen to me talk. It doesn't go in here. I'm always connected. Is it too big?
It's different.
Is this a regular cord that,
No, this is HDMI.
HDMI, that's what we used? We used one last time.
It might be on the back of the computer, in the back.
Nope. Let's see
It's
if I can
on the
find it.
back, like on the back side.
I don't think there is one on the back. There we go. Okay, so now, no signal,
It's gonna kick off.
okay. If you have to leave, by the way. Oh, okay, so reboot it on. Okay, oop, there we go, there we go. I don't know where it took me to here, let me get out of there real quick and get back up here. Slideshow from the beginning, okay. As I said, this started out to be like a Maha update. There we go. And then as the weeks went on, I discovered something and started doing a deep dive into why our infants are dying in catastrophic amounts of, an incredible amount of children die every year for what they say are sudden infant death syndrome or sudden unexplained death or fetal demise. And those are 3 different categories that all describe the same thing. Healthy children come out, they're out for a day or 2 or 6 months or even a year, and they suddenly die. And because they don't do the proper autopsies, we don't really know the cause. So as I did a deep dive into this, I discovered that our autopsies that we're doing in this whole country never look for the underlying cause of why our children are dying. So I ended up starting on that rabbit hole, and I did end up having a meeting with the coroner and somebody down at MUSC Medical School about a week and a half ago did an hour-and-a-half presentation, completely blew their mind. They did not know what I'm going to show you. And it's just amazing how the medical community do not know what Mary Tocco knows, who is not a medical doctor. I don't give medical advice. I've just been researching for over 45 years now. And so I don't know if anything's going to become of that, but it was the beginning of what I call a new career in what I'm talking about, because I want to wake people up as to what's going on, so that you can understand why we have so many children that are dying for unexplained reasons, and why we're not doing the proper autopsies. This lecture series is intended for educational purposes. It's not to be construed as medical advice. It's up to the individual to make their own healthcare decisions. I love this verse. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. You see, when we don't ask the hard questions and dig, we end up being manipulated and lied to. And honestly, we end up being like slaves to the system. And the Bible tells us that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And so I'm going to encourage you today, if this information is new to you, can you raise your hand to me, please? Am I preaching to the crowd, or you already all know, right? A few of you. Welcome. I'm glad you have it here. But whenever you hear new information that is contrary to what you know, the first thing our brain does is it likes to shut down and start immediately talking in yourself about why this information can't possibly be valid. It literally, your brain is programmed to only understand what it's been exposed to. And that's a very big problem. So what I'm asking you to do today is put your beliefs aside, because everything I share with you is documented scientific medical research based on what I believe is the truth. And I stand before God, I answer to God, I believe He called me to start doing this 35 years ago. And so everything that I'm going to share with you is based on what I believe is the truth. And that just means somebody's not being truthful, okay? So, I am pro-medical freedom, I am pro-life, I am pro-family rights. I believe that we should be in charge of our children, what they eat, what they get exposed to, what they're injected with. I am also pro-natural healthcare options. I've been involved with holistic natural health for my whole adult life, starting in the mid-20s when I was 20. I am pro-medical transparency. I believe that we have a right to know what's going on. And I'm pro-real science, which I think you're going to find we do not have. on anti-traditional pediatricians who just medicate and drug, remove organs, and do nothing to encourage health. So I tell people all the time, I have 5 grown children. I had my babies born at home naturally with midwives. We never had a pediatrician. We never filled a prescription. We never did an injection. We didn't buy over-the-counter medications. And we did very well because we understood how the body is designed to work. We knew the purpose of the fever. We knew what a body rash was. We knew when the glands were swollen, that it was a good thing, the body's working. So we came from a very, my ex-husband unfortunately passed away, but we came from a very holistic foundation. And so our children were raised that way. And now we have 13 grandbabies who have raised exactly the same way. I also was a home educating mom, back before people were talking about it. So I guess God put me in a position to be kind of several decades ahead of most people. But I am 100% against vaccinations. Our children are our future. If we don't protect them, what are we going to have? I mean, look at, we're going to talk about what's going on in society now, but our children are the future. And they're a gift from God.
Amen.
And as parents, it's our responsibility and our obligation to protect them from whatever will harm them. And so I cannot stress this enough. People say, Mary, do you have any vaccine with your children? Why do you do this? No, I don't. And I'm grateful that I learned about it before I had my first child. I thank God all the time that He gave me that intuition, that knowledge before I had my first baby. Because I'm sure at least 2 of my children would have been vaccinated based on their based on their genetic makeup and their epigenetics. At least 2 of them would have been vaccinated quite severely. So I'm grateful, and that's why I do it. Right now, you have to realize our children. You have to think of us. Each one of us has a garbage can inside of us where we store toxins. You know, we've got the liver working the kidney. But there comes a point when the toxic load is so great that it pollutes the rest of the body, pollutes the brain, and that's why this is a perfect picture. We have vaccines, pesticides, we have petrochemicals, insecticides, air pollution, artificial food chemicals, medications, and vaccines that our children are taking in from the day they're born. And I believe that what we're seeing now is our children are full of toxins, and that's why we're having issues. And that, by the way, creates an enormous amount of stress in their little bodies to where they can hardly function and end up with chronic debilitating diseases. Just to give you some background, allopathy, which is our current medical system, it's the allopathic medical model. The allopathic medical model has 3 tools that they use to treat symptoms. Drugs, which are chemicals, a scalpel to cut, and radiation to burn. The word allopathy actually means to antagonize. So in the medical community, any symptom that you present, we go in and we say, oh doctor, I have a sore throat, and I have swollen glands, and I have a headache. That to them means we have to do something to go against that. They believe in suppressing your symptoms. Whereas unlike that, a naturopathic doctor or a holistic doctor or a chiropractor will say, oh, your body's working really well, let's make sure it's working the best that it can. Let's support that system. That's the difference between allopathy. Allopathy does not respect the symptoms of the human body. They instead try to shut them down. They do not address the cause of disease. They do not have a healing philosophy. They take no time. Their tools are drugs or surgery, customers for life from cradle to grave. That is exactly what they are. And I'm not here to offend anybody who's in the medical field. I know that there's a place. I totally believe in crisis emergency care. I'm thankful that we have doctors and nurses that can put our bodies back together when we have broken bones or repair our heart. So I'm not trying to be against people in the medical field. I'm just trying to tell you the medical system is very broken.
You're right.
And they have failed the American children. Excuse me. This is my quote that I use all the time. You don't know what you don't know, and you won't find what you're not looking for. And so if you're just going with the flow and just listening to everybody else, there's a chance that you'll be victimized by some sort of medical problem. Excuse me. What happened back in the 1950s when I was growing in my family, one of 11 children, number 7, medical doctors had their own clinics. I can remember on one hand how many times I went to the doctor. If my mother had a bunch of us sick, we'd go get one penicillin shot, and then we'd go home. So 85% of the doctors had their own office, they were in charge of their own diagnosis, their own treatment, and they came out and they took care of their patients. They took whatever time was needed to diagnose and treat their children, or the people. In 2025, 85% of all the medical hospital corporations now control the doctors. The doctors no longer have their own shingle. You see, we had a shift take place. And one of the doctors I like to listen to, she said, if someone has a fever in the emergency room, the doc must prescribe an antibiotic within 1 hour, or they are financially penalized and could possibly lose their job. That never happened before. So you have the insurance companies and the medical hospital corporations telling doctors how they have to treat their patients, telling them what they can and cannot do. And we saw that during COVID with ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, right? They said they weren't allowed to do it. So, in 1986, President Ronald Reagan reluctantly signed something called the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act. And basically it bailed out the vaccine manufacturers who make all the vaccines, all the financial liability for death and injuries was removed from the vaccine manufacturers. And the reason why is during the 20 years before, they had a shot called the DPT vaccine, and it was causing so much injury and death and crippled. I mean, I've met people in wheelchairs who are hooked up to machines, who can't eat, they have feeding tubes because of that vaccination. Okay, in the years that I've been traveling and speaking, I've seen them. And the pharmaceutical companies were getting sued so badly, they went to Congress and said, you've got to help us, you've got to bail us out, or we're not going to make vaccines. And that means you won't have any biologics for wartime. You see, that was the apple or the carrot, the biologics. If we can't make biologics, the rest of the world is going to come up with, chemical warfare, and we won't be able to do it. So Ronald Reagan reluctantly signed that into law in 1986. At the same time, by law, they charged Human Health and Services with the explicit responsibility to provide safety studies showing that all the vaccines are safe and effective. They were ordered, and they said biannual reports had to be submitted for their review to make sure that the vaccines coming up from that point forward